All right, I wanted to make a little intro to this case study because it's a little bit different than our usual case studies. So this is a call with Kevin Bobowski. He is or was one of our customers. He's the CMO at Siteimprove. Siteimprove is a 600 people B2B SaaS company. And unfortunately, we only worked with Kevin for 4 months because he's currently transitioning to a new company. And so we're ending the effort with him, unfortunately. And obviously, how it is with enterprise deals, he was our contact at Siteimprove that we had a relationship with. So, you know, restarting and trying to find a different stakeholder at Siteimprove who wants to do these videos with us, the CEO or someone else in the leadership, starts a whole nother sales process. So we're wrapping up the engagement with him. And this call was actually our debrief call with him, me, and Jay, our creative director, just to say goodbye, get some feedback from him, hear what we did well, hear what we didn't do so well, and what we could improve on. And it actually turned out to be a great case study because he had some great examples to give on kind of what worked, and his feedback is in there too, the two things that he thinks we should be improving on. So I hope you like it, Kevin Bobowski, and I hope you enjoy the case study.
And I really enjoyed working with you guys, Jay. It's been I know we had like towards the end there, it was getting kind of funky around scheduled meetings and rescheduled
Yeah.
meetings. You can kind of get a sense for like why that was happening because yeah, on the feedback, I'll tell you,
Go ahead.
my mandate was to get the story out and get the new kind of Siteimprove story out into the
Right.
market and build some buzz around it. And I'll tell you, like everybody I talked to said, "Hey, my gosh, like I saw what you're doing on LinkedIn." Like the executive recruiter that actually placed me in the job, she pinged me from time to time and say, "Wow, I can't believe all of what you're doing." I went to the Optimizely annual conference. I spoke on their main stage, and their folks came up to me. They're like, "How do you do all this video like all the time? Like it's incredible." Um, and then who was the other? Oh, my wife went to Chicago for a work event, but then she hung out with some of her friends on the weekend, and her friends were talking about seeing me on LinkedIn and like how they were using it and sharing it at the company. So you guys like nailed it, but I'll save the best for last. So I was at the Optimizely annual user conference, and I was sitting around the booth with a couple of our BDRs, like the sales development reps, the guys right out of college who make the calls. And the guy was like, "Hey, I watch all your videos, and then what I do is I go through and I create all the notes on what you talk about, and then I practice it, and then I use that in my calls for the next day." And I was like, "Wow." I said, I was like, "Are you the only one that does that?" He's like, "Oh no." He's like, "All the BDRs like sit down, they watch the videos, and then they go out and test that message into the market." And he's like, "It works." And I said, "Well, I do all that stuff on internal enablement calls." And he's like, "Yeah, but that's not how people listen, like learn." He's like, "Nobody cares. It's like in the middle of the day, or you got calls, you got this." He's like, "Those videos have been the best way for me to get on message." And so I wanted to share that with you guys because I never thought that would have been an enablement tool, but it absolutely became one. So to me, I don't think I would have ever described it this way until I had that conversation. But what I was doing was internal enablement externally. Like I was literally doing internal enablement of our message, but in an external channel.
Right.
And I always thought it was going to be around promotion and letting customers hear about it and prospects. And I'm sure there's some that kind of hear it, but more it was around getting all that content in the feeds of the 600 employees and allowing them to use it and share it in a much more structured way than anything possible, like through an internal enablement program.
Fascinating. So it's like
So,
almost training the company on the messaging on.
yep. And yeah, training the company on the messaging and talking points on LinkedIn, which doesn't seem like you'd want to do that in internal programs. But if you think about it, there's like when you do internal enablement, it's an hour, right? It's 30 minutes. You go through the slides, you have different people talk. Like you just don't create like, here's the 120-second talk track. go for it, right? And I think that's how people learn today. I don't think they learn through these like 1 hour enablement programs where you sit there and you're like, okay, slide 32. Okay, oh yeah, that's right. Okay, it's this buyer and that buyer. Like it's just different. It's like these micro chunks. And I remember like one of the more senior sales reps, he was a senior leader. I think he ran like he's got all of Canada. And he's like, hey, Kevin, this whole like transforming content or revenue marketing departments into revenue, he's like, that's resonating. And it was interesting because I never actually presented to him or the company on that specific topic at any length, but he took that all from LinkedIn. I remember when we first engaged with you guys, I was like, okay, they're going to help us just produce a bunch of videos, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, then you guys came in with this like 58 question kind of questionnaire. And I'm like, oh, what's this? Like, and then I remember like you guys had a methodology and approach. And it wasn't around video production. It was really around extracting kind of the corporate story. I think you guys are storytellers. And I think the notion of storytelling is a really powerful, like kind of emotive kind of word. The video is the delivery, like it's the content.
The medium.
Facebook and are the channels, right? So I think you are, if I would say like you guys are an agency that helps marketing departments and companies tell their story in better ways, right? And so like in better ways, what does that mean? It's sort of like in bite-sized chunks, like in 120 seconds, 60 seconds. It's done in sort of a structured way. So the story builds and supports. And that message enables your employees, and it also enables and builds kind of recognition in the marketplace. So you're solving kind of the whole inside out marketing thing where you got to enable your people first and get your team excited before you can go out to market and sell, because everybody needs to know what you're selling. So you guys are storytellers. And I think, Jay, you do a really good job of bringing out the story. You have a sharp eye for like a story that's going to resonate, what's kind of unique, what's like genuine. And I think that's what your guys' secret sauce is. Because
it helps with recruiting. It helps with, understanding who are the key players that can come into your team. And if you're in hiring, you're in HR, right? And you understand what the messaging of the company is. When you introduce this messaging into your interview process, now you can actually target and
Jay, just to build on that, I forgot about the recruiting piece. I totally forgot that as a feedback. So I would interview people, people that we were looking to hire in the marketing department, and they're like, hey, I watched all your videos. And they're like, we would start having conversations about things. They would almost be up to speed on what was happening in the company, right? And it's like that video is so much richer than sending out a PowerPoint deck to somebody, right? And the other thing that I found kind of interesting was like, I'd also hear from other people, like they wouldn't tell this to me, but they're like, hey, I feel like I watched those videos before I interviewed Kevin, or before Kevin interviewed me, and I knew who he was. Like I understood who he was. He was like, I understood his personality and style. I'll give you one example. We were interviewing for a CFO, and the CFO, both of them at the time, I was around that time I did the whole like revenue marketing center and stuff. And they're like, hey, I read your thing and I watched your videos. And he's like, I get it. That changed the complete course of the conversation versus like, tell me about yourself. What do you do? I mean, we were in the details and they were captured. That was the hook. And so I thought that was really interesting too.
Wow. So
I
these
remember
are
we made a
all
piece on that. We made a video on that.
Yeah.
So these are all kind of, that's amazing. These are all kind of like qualitative, right? These are like little anecdotes. Was there anything, and I mean, I know we only work for a rather short period of time, unfortunately. Was there anything like quantifiable that you guys noticed? I don't know if you guys had any tracking set up on the back end or anything where you guys felt that any numbers were going up, or I mean, all of these things are already amazing on their own, but I don't know if there's anything else to that end that you noticed picking up.
I mean, I can come up with some stats for you guys that would be helpful, and one of them that I'm thinking about is So some context here. So we were going from this accessibility software company that it'd sell it for $15,000 or $20,000. And our story was accessibility, accessibility, accessibility. All the work that we did with you guys told a bigger story. And so when we would get into prospect deals, we could now turn a 20K accessibility deal into a 100K marketing performance deal, 100,000 US dollars. And I think at one point we had something like, when I joined, we had like a handful, like 500K deals in the pipeline. I think right now we have over 50 or 60. And so the messaging is working because everybody's talking about this bigger story that's Siteimprove, and we're connecting it up to value. And now, would that have happened without the LinkedIn videos? Some of it would have, but it's the orchestration of everything. We had new packaging and pricing. And so I think I could talk about like how that impacted sales performance, average deal size, quota attainment. Like it made a really big difference.
Wow. It makes me very happy.
Yeah.
What can we do better? You know, you mentioned all these nice things. What should we change? What can we do better?
Oh man, here's the list. I'm just kidding.
Get rid of Jay.
There was an old movie when I was a kid, and the guy was going through a final exam, and the professor's like, "I only have one question for you in 33 parts." And so I always make the joke of like, I only have one piece of feedback in 33 bullets. But no, like there's really just two things. I think it's actually what we're talking about here, which is how to position yourself. Like when that questionnaire comes, because I'm like, oh gosh, I thought they were a video editing crew, right? Like this is about us helping you tell your story into the marketplace, right? And this investment is going to pay off, and it really did. Like I think it was really helpful to do that. And then I think the second piece.
Wait, so the what we should change is just setting the expectation a little bit better, that this is that you know what's coming type of stuff, or
exactly, because you guys like when they're like, oh, you got to fill out this like huge like questionnaire, I'm like, oh my gosh, like what do we do? Who is, and I didn't have any context around that.
Right.
And then when I started, I think I had a conversation with you guys, then I was like, oh my gosh, they have a framework, they have an approach, and this is what you need to do. And so I would reframe it to say, guys, like we're storytellers, and we're great at helping you tell a compelling story into the marketplace, or to your employees, or to potential employees, all of your stakeholders, right? To do that, we really need to understand who you are and help us develop those themes and ideas. So take some time to do this, right?
What was the second piece?
The second piece is on the data. Like you guys had shared some data on like top performing post, and I think around some audience. And I think one of the questions I would get, so I see the value in what you guys would do. I would have renewed. Next company I go to, I want to bring you guys in and work with you guys if you guys would want to, like immediately.
Anytime.
I think it just be the opportunity. And but I do think I would get pressure to say, what are these guys doing and what's the results? And so if you guys could send me some of the results that we had on LinkedIn, then I could kind of go through and share with you maybe some other things I would need to see in order to support the story internally.
What would you like to see? Actually, funny, today I finished building out the process for our new quarterly reporting process, which is, I think, much improved. But what would you want to see? Like what?
Well, Kevin gets their first quarterly now, basically. Kevin's on the list for the first quarterly report. So
okay, you never got the deep dive report.
Yeah, the deep dive report.
We create one every quarter for customers.
Okay,
because the ones that we sent you was the overview of the month.
But the problem, even with those ones, right? And that's why I'm asking, what would you want to see? We can't see into you guys' organization, right? So like what you told me, for example, with the $100,000 deals that they went up and all of these things, we can't know these things, right? So like the only things that we can really report on is like content metrics, right? Views and likes and engagement rate and, you know, comments that we got and like really meaningful comments that we got. We look at these things, right? But if someone doesn't believe in this stuff, they will tell us, hey, this is like nice that I got 50 likes on this post, but I want to know bottom line, right? So I would like to know how you would approach this, and what do you think how we should handle this?
That's a good question. So And we did have some really nice stats on sort of impressions on LinkedIn that you guys didn't have access to. That's actually one of the things, if in retrospect, what we should have done is share that with you, because what I do with impressions, if I say we've got 1.2 million impressions on our LinkedIn account, this is for Siteimprove, there's a dollar value assigned to that based on how much the cost of an impression on like 6 cents or like Google Ad Network. Right. And so you can say 1.2 million impressions equals $400 or $4,000 or whatever it is.
Yep.
But I think the more important thing for you guys is around content engagement metrics, which you talked about, Finn, which is which posts have the most engagement. What's the overall engagement, and then which posts have the most engagement, because that will start to help you identify and give you quantifiable data on sort of the message that works, right? Here's the 5 messages that worked. And then the second piece that I think would be really helpful is audience engagement. So who was engaging with the posts? And then, because what then I could do is say, listen, for those most popular posts, here's who engaged. And so this audience really likes this topic. And so at the end of the day, I would love to be able to go out to like my boss and say, so we did, I'm going to make this up, 40 posts with video. Of those, here's the top 5. That tells us that these are the themes that resonate in the market. And then digging deeper into the top 5, here's the audience that drove the most engagement with that. And so basically we can tell C-level executives at Fortune 500s, as an example, love this content, but actually it's completely the opposite for the content marketer. They love this content, right? And you could start to really understand the different personas.
So you would want to the breakdown kind of by job title and industry, that type of stuff, right? Like this is founders watching these videos.
Not necessarily whether they match an ICP already, but to determine what.
I love that.
Oh my God, that's
we can get part brilliant. Of that data. So the first part is exactly what we build the quarterly reports around. We have one main metric, we call it total weighted engagements, and so we basically add together what are the likes plus twice the comments plus 4 times the shares, so they're weighted, right? Comments count, likes count once, comments count twice, and then shares count 4 times because they're more valuable. We add that together, we get one metric. This is the metric that we compare videos by each other. And then we see, okay, out of this data set of, let's say, the 40 videos that we posted, what's the average for this number across the data set? What's the standard deviation for this data set? And then we have a kind of, we call them great videos. Any video out of these 40 videos that is at least 1 standard deviation above the average is a great video. So it basically just means, you don't want to just have any video that's above the average, because that's roughly half the videos. You want to have videos that are significantly above the average, right? And that's the standard deviation. And then we give you exactly these videos, and we give you a report, and it says, here's the 5 videos that are at least 1 standard deviation above the average for this total weighted engagements. And then based on that, we obviously just give you the links, so you can repurpose it. We have a bunch of follow-up items based on that. We create like follow-up questions, and we build it into the content pillars where we say, okay, seems like this general topic really resonated. Let's talk more about this, right? That sort of stuff. But the breakdown of the job titles is new, and I think we can actually get that from Shield, and get like a screenshot of that and actually attach it and say, here's also like 30% founders, 50%, marketing managers watch this video, etc.
So what you describe is that you have like a LinkedIn scoring model.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. And that I could go, now that actually gets interesting, because I could go to my boss and say, hey, listen, part of what they're going to do is help us build out this LinkedIn scoring model. And, Finn and Jay, somebody's going to argue, oh, I think it should be 3 times instead of 4 times.
Yeah.
That's Pardot, Marketo, HubSpot lead scoring. It's fine. As long as you have one, you guys are building a LinkedIn scoring model that helps you identify the top content, right?
Yeah.
And that, to me, I think is a great way to test your message into the marketplace. Like the more I think about it, like if I joined like an early stage software company, you don't get enough at bats in terms of like pitching your story to the market. Like you don't get a lot of leads. You have to go do that. It's hard, but you could use LinkedIn actually as a test bed, like a message test bed on testing the validity and sort of the effectiveness of your message.
Totally. And that's where the repurposing comes in, right? Because that's exactly what we did with our Facebook ads, right? Because I posted 200 videos over the last 2 years, right? So I had a lot of experiments. But now when I actually put budget behind ads, which is going to cost me a lot of money, I'm not just going to throw random things against the wall and hope that people will like my ad. I can actually look at the quantifiable data over the last 2 years, and I know which 10 topics actually resonated with our customers. And we only put those 10 videos into the Facebook ads where we put budget behind it, right?
So it's interesting, right? Because I keep talking about like most content's never used. And what you've done is a really good example of like, we produced a lot of content, and that's fine because you want to experiment and you want to learn. At the end of the day, there were 10 videos out of 200 that drove 95% of our performance,
exactly. Yeah.
right? And I think that's true for everybody, is that you got to start with the experimentation, and then because you have to start somewhere, right, to build out your portfolio, and then you can narrow down and then start bridging. Like if you know those 10 topics, there's probably some subtopics that you could start to build from that are going to be effective. And that really helps drive that focus.
All right, and then here's also a little outro, because this was planned to be a debrief call. The ending is a little bit abrupt, but I wanted to just add a comment on those 2 feedback points that Kevin mentioned. They're both implemented now. I think he made some great points and the feedback was amazing. So we actually already built it into our process. The first point he talked about is our onboarding questionnaire, to just set the expectation a little bit better with customers, with prospects during the onboarding, that this is a very important pillar thing that customers need to fill out, and it takes people roughly 6 hours to fill out. So we now set that expectation a little bit better, that we need this information and we need these details from you in the beginning, so that we can build out the company story and we can build out your content pillars and we can define your topics and the themes that we want to touch on. So that onboarding questionnaire is part of every onboarding process, and it takes roughly 6 hours. So we're now trying to do a better job just communicating that it does take 6 hours and that it is important, because we are not just video editors. And then the second point was on the reporting. So we now have a updated, redone quarterly reporting process in which we analyze the data based on the total weighted engagements that we looked at. You get a list of the best performing videos every quarter. So the first quarterly report looks at your first 3 months, the second quarterly report looks at your first 6 months, so that over time you get more and more accurate data. And after, let's say, 9 months, you get a really clear picture of, over the span of 9 months, out of all these videos we've posted, here's your top 5 or here's your top 10. And then we also look at the specific engagement metrics on these videos, where we can look at, what are the job titles of the people who engage with this video, what are the industries, what are the companies that engage with this video, to dig even deeper. So this is now implemented into our quarterly reporting process, because it was a great idea. And so that's now part of our offer and of the process.